Greetings, electrical engineers. Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to Oxygen Not Included Frosty Planet, Episode 7, Fueled Power. The first thing I want you guys to do is to vote on what I work on next, now that we sort of have a slightly isolated living area. So here are the poll. This is the poll and the poll options, and I'll explain. So explore is pretty simple. It would just be to build upwards, up until where this space is, and downwards into the core, and then anytime we find anything of interest, going left or right to try to figure out what that thing is. I could also build a laboratory. So one of the benefits, let me open up the room overlay so that you can make more of an informed decision. The benefit of a laboratory is you get a speed bonus, an efficiency bonus, if you have at least 2 science buildings, a light source, and no industrial materials. So we could build a laboratory in here if we wanted. I could also build a kitchen in here. I would probably, if I set up a kitchen, try to make it so that I didn't necessarily have to use a refrigerator. Probably putting like a ration box near the alveol vera, where it's supposed to be cold down here. Eventually, I think it might be ideal to set up some wheezeworts down here so there's localized cold temperatures, meaning that the kitchen would probably be around here, and then maybe the great dining room or something like that. Alright, we could also build a Great Hall. Great Halls is just an improved version of the mess hall. The Great Hall is relatively simple for the amount of morale it provides. We could also improve the barracks to be a luxury barracks, because currently we have a miscellaneous room. It's not even a barracks. Why not? Is it too big? Oh, it's slightly too big. So we could shrink this down so it's a proper barracks, which would be probably smart to do. We could also build a power plant. So now that we have a slightly temperature isolated area here, we could build a power plant in order to generate power rather than have to run on the hamster wheel. And almost certainly the power that I'm going to generate would be from the research tree in order to get a wood burner. So the benefit of the wood burner is it produces heat, produces power, and outputs carbon dioxide, and the carbon dioxide can then be converted back into oxygen through the alveol vera. So I would be putting the power plant somewhere in here. It's basically going to get very cramped in this area, but that's okay. We could build a recreation room. So the requirements for a recreation room, if I could find it, is that it needs recreational buildings and decor items, and it allows for downtime. Now, I will say that currently with the schedule we have, we don't have a ton of scheduled downtime. Any more scheduled downtime, and of course it would increase morale, but we're not really running into morale problems, so there's not a whole lot of sense to up the downtime. Or we could build a nature reserve. So a nature reserve would utilize some of the wild plants around. So let's open up that overlay. So we've got wild plants around here, like these, and this one potentially could be a nature reserve, or these 4 could be a nature reserve, and essentially designing it so that our duplicants have to pass through the nature reserve as they go about their business. Or lastly, number 10 is just viewer suggestions. Anything that are left off this list that you think I would benefit from building. So while you vote on that, 1 more minute, but it does look like power plants got a pretty healthy lead. I'm gonna go ahead and print some new blueprints. Some just cosmetics. Ooh, a white tea. Lovely. All right. So we're off. So if we're talking about a power plant, the actual power plant requirement is probably not something that we're necessarily going to meet. A power plant requires a power control station. I actually could build a power control station, I suppose. But I don't know if I necessarily want to tune it up, as I'm not 100% sure that that would be required for our power needs for the base. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't feel like it's a big deal necessarily. Alright, we also have a skill point. Matic leveled up. Matic has plenty of morale overhead, and I think I'm going to be trying to give everyone suit sustainability training, because one of the things that we could do to try to avoid our duplicants from being very cold wherever they go is to make sure that they have, you know, make sure that they stay warm and they are oxygenated. And generally, we'll oxygenate the living quarters and then the working quarters, but nothing else. To eventually airlock as we explore deeper, so that if we hit pockets of like natural gas or hydrogen or whatever else, giant pockets of carbon dioxide or whatever else like that, that they aren't spilled into our base. Essentially isolating a certain amount of area needed for industry, and then airlocking with checkpoints so that we have suits. That is not something I'm going to be doing immediately, but it is definitely something we're going to do in the long run. So right now, I'm just going to build a simple power plant. Build a power plant. Now, there's a few things to talk about for the power plant. One is that the power requirements for my individual base... Well, all right. I should back up a little bit and set up some research. So, and also the game sounds kind of low. Maybe I'm just louder today. So generally speaking, the amount of power that you have, these little wires will blow out once they exceed 1,000 watts. And you can research slightly higher capacity cables, the conductive cables, which are 2K watts. But for the major industrial sort of backbone, generally you're going to be looking at, because these are rather expensive, they require processed metals, you're generally looking at heavy watt wires, which are ugly, but are very good at not overloading and not getting damaged as a result. And I mention this because if in our current base's orientation, if we want to use heavy watt wires, we're going to have to replace some of these walls with the heavy watt joint plates, because heavy watt wires cannot be built on other tiles. So when we're trying to power up this base, one of the issues that we're going to run into is that most power generation generates heat, and the heat can be a real problem for the biomes around here. So it's going to be an ongoing problem, because really any way to generate power means you're basically generating heat for the most part. I mean, there is like solar or whatever, but getting to that point means you've generated a lot of heat through making plastics and the like. So the reason I mention this is most of our power generators would be ideal to be sealed up in the same way that our living room is. So I'm going to be setting up a power station or a power plant within our living area that is only supposed to generate a little bit of power, that it's not intended to power up the entire base. The idea is that we'll eventually build a similar isolated chamber for the actual power plant, like a future power plant, and decide on what kind of power that will produce. So this is going to be a small power plant. In the future, we're going to need a big one, I guess is the long and short of it. Before I even do that, I want to build a pneumatic door. Maybe here with some mesh tiles to make this a barracks. We've also broken down the old sleeping area. So yeah, the new power plant is going to be one of, honestly, just low wattage. So the current wattage that we have in our base now at potential load is only 540 watts, which is just about half of what a power plant would require. One of the things I was hoping to do is to have the wood burner be responsible for running the gas pump. So because the gas pump, once turned on, will just continually drain, and the wood burner would allow us to not have to run on the wheel. So I kind of don't want to vacuum out the base until the wood burner is constructed. We've also created a liquid lock here, so I stopped the rest of the ethanol from being dumped out because we have enough ethanol in that lock. So we're doing the research for the power plant, and then the idea is to have just like a 2K circuit in here. And then if we need power to be sent outside, we could do additional 2K circuits. Essentially, I'm planning on not joint plating here. All right. One other thing that I saw in the YouTube comments is I am cracking phlox eggs. So let's stop doing that because we want more phlox. So we've been taking care of the flocks, and we want them to their numbers to spread. The other thing that I could do is to put a storage bin in here at very high priority, so that we put the phlox eggs in there, and then as soon as that bin has phlox eggs, dump the phlox eggs out, so that the phlox eggs are in the ranch and will naturally hatch rather than be incubated, and they will be hatching, you know, without power, because the incubators require a lot of power as well. How could we benefit from the heat but controlling the flow? I'm not sure what you mean. You're gonna have to be a little bit more specific. I'm also gonna put another quilt cot here, figuring that we're gonna eventually aim for the duplicate. And then the other thing that we might want to do is to have once we have the research to get a wood burner, to also get a smart battery, to get the power control station, and then to get some of the automation wires, so that the wood burner isn't burning all the time, but only burning when we actually require the power. Because if it's burning all the time, then it's a lot of wasted wood that isn't necessary for any reason. All right, so the first power research is now done, and that would be the jumbo battery, a switch, and a wire bridge. And a wire bridge allows you to sort of have two separate networks jump over one another. So if I wanted wires to cross one another but not actually to connect, you can use a wire bridge. Once the smart battery and wood burner is hooked up, we're also going to have to wait until the oxygen pressure outside of this vent is lower. So in terms of pressure, if we go to gas, you can see that there's pretty uniform oxygen pressure kind of everywhere around here. There are definitely pockets of carbon dioxide, and that will eventually be pumped out through this gas pump. It's going to take a very long time for that to work. But that's the sort of long-term goal. So up here, we want phlox eggs. And I'll put this as a 9, because it's very important that phlox eggs actually get there. Alternatively, because the phlox eggs are... I'm going to have this be a sweep only. So generally, these phlox fawn eggs are landing within the ranch, as they should. So this is really only when there's phlox eggs outside the ranch that need to be moved into the ranch. Because there's no point in moving it and then having to spill out of it the sweeping bin again. So right now there seems to be like I think there were like 3 or 4 phlox eggs on the ground. At least 3. I see 3, but there might be more because... Oh no, there's a 4th. It's hard to tell because it's pretty messy in there. And at some point we're going to want to clean it up, but we have bigger, better tasks to take care of first. Oh, the Yoda cam. Let me unpause that for you. Yeah. All right, new printable. Let's see what we got. Rancher Decorator Operator, who has a small bladder pacifist, but is also frostproof. So I don't really need a full-time decorator, rancher, or operator at the moment. Someone that just tidies, who doesn't learn well and doesn't build well. Someone who's a cook, doctor, builder, who's handy, but does not like critters. Ada's maybe the closest that I would want, but I probably am looking for dupes that like to build that also have strength capabilities, because if there's not any current building tasks, I would like for them to help to tidy up and sweep. So I'm looking for someone that can essentially take jobs that we have high need for, which would be tidying, sweeping, building, mining, and combinations to them. I'm very picky about the dupes I take. It's just a personal preference. All right, so this ranch is 9 critters, because I think it counts the eggs on the ground, which means that they are currently cramped. So the best thing I could do is I'm going to attack this Phlox, who's elderly, and start to kill off the older Phlox, so that we can use their meat. Because if they're too cramped, if the population in there exceeds 8, they become unhappy, and then as a result of being unhappy, they don't breed and they don't shear, you know, quite the same. So we've got the wood burner now. And the idea that I had is maybe to put the wood burner here. I'm going to make the wood burner out of iron. So I'm going to be generating heat here through this wood heater. And that's mostly for the frost resistant bonus. And also the carbon dioxide generating. So this wood burner will also help to produce both heat and oxygen through the aloe vera. So we are now doing the sound amplifiers for the smart battery, which allows you to use automation wires on it, and also the power control station if we do want to make a formal power plant. Maybe I do. Is it safe to assume that the heat the power plant creates doesn't give the recently warmed buff? Correct. I don't believe it gives any sorts of buffs, unless, of course, the power plant increases the ambient temperature enough that it would that it benefits in that way. All right, the other thing we want is if we have a wood burner here, we're probably going to want a source of wood adjacent. And this only produces 300 watts. So it's entirely possible that we'll want more than one wood burner, but I'm going to start small before scaling it up too much. But yeah, it's happening pretty regularly between the backcountry grill and the research that our power is out. You know, we're sort of out of power pretty regularly. Oh, hold on. Some of my redemption noises are off. So, I missed a Yoda cam accidentally. There you go. So what's the heat capacity and thermal conductivity of wood? Oh, that's not what I meant to look at. Alright, let's find some wood. Here we go. This is the information about wood. So, it burns to carbon dioxide at about 600 C. It can be refined into refined carbon through the kiln. It can be burned for carbon dioxide in the wood burner. It can be distilled into ethanol through the ethanol distillery, making carbon dioxide, ethanol, and polluted dirt. It can be heated for more carbon dioxide. So if you take a look at this, this is 720 kilograms per cycle wood burner for 102 kilograms of carbon dioxide. And this is 15 kilograms per cycle. So the difference between a wood burner and the wood heater is enormous. A whole order of magnitude more wood burning, essentially. So that's important to keep an eye on. And then also, we got some stuff that can be crushed into wood. Arbor trees make wood. Bonbon trees make wood. You can shear phlox for wood. And then, in terms of its specific heat capacity, it's 2.3 DTU per gram. And then thermal conductivity is 0.220. If I can put that into context, let's look at the specific heat for, like, granite. As you can see, there's the specific heat capacity and thermal conductivity of this is granite. And then I can also do igneous as well. So it's pretty on par with some of the other initial construction materials that you're going to have access to in the game. And we have 9 tons of wood. Keeping an eye on our wood, because we're very wood reliant, at least for now, is pretty good, which is why I have it pinned up here. Just making sure that they're doing the right eggs. Yeah, these are pufflet eggs. That's good. The air quality in the bathroom's looking rather green. Oh yeah, there's definitely some polluted oxygen in there. There isn't any, at least for now, airborne germs anywhere. So the airborne germs are really what is concerning about polluted oxygen, because airborne germs live in polluted oxygen. The thing is, I don't have access to a lot of filtration mediums for air purifiers. If I wanted to purify the air, I could crush rocks, or also look for sand out here. But it's not that much of a high priority, because we aren't germy. If I take a look at the germ overlay, as you can see, it's a pretty germ-free colony at the moment. Plus, I have other priorities that are voted on. It's important to not forget, I work on voted on priorities more than the other ones, unless something is an emergency, which this is not. Alright, Scorpio leveled up. Good. We are also going to give you Suit. Oh wow, their morale is quite high. Holy moly. What did I even do? I don't even know. They're happy though, and that's what matters. So the basic research for the sound amplifiers is almost done, or is done, and the advanced research is almost done. So we're very close to being able to start to rig up a proper power plant. So now that this room is shrunk down a little bit, it is a proper barracks. A luxury barracks requires us not to use cots, which wouldn't exactly be easy to accomplish at the moment. So there's not much else that we can do in there that would be of much benefit. The other thing to not forget is that the wooden living area is unbelievably pretty. The duplicants love living around wood walls and floors and everything. They're wood addicts, if you will. So I'm getting a lot of boon just from all the wood tiles in there. It's very easy to keep them happy. And there we go. Sound amplifiers is done. Now, coupled with sound amplifiers, in order to make use of the battery, I'm going to need smart home at the very least. So the smart home will give the automation overlay, so you can see all the automation wires and everything. The signal switches, the automation wires, and that will allow us to design it in such a way that we can have things turned on and off. So the requirement for that, of course, is refined metal. Now, I don't have any refined metal. I do know where some is, but the only refined metal that I have knowledge of, and let me open up the metal overlay. So this mercury is a refined metal. The problem is mercury tends to be a liquid at room temperature, right? So that would be a really bad choice for to use that refined metal for anything inside that is going to be heated. And that is the only refined metal that we see out here. So in order to build what we need to build, the other thing I'm going to need is refinement. So actually, before I even go to smart home research, I need the ability to be able to refine some metals, which means we need brute force refinement researched so that I can build a power plant and I can build a smart battery. Looks like a lot of these dupes are idle, which is surprising. So the other thing I could do is to set up low-level sweeps. Just to try to put things away. Because if this is an area that we're going to often work in, having it be filthy is a bit of a downer, right? It's a big mood downer to be around, like, constant clutter. So sweeping it up is a bit of a benefit to the duplicants, so that their living areas are nicer. So brute force refinement's done. That was very fast. Now we can go back to smart home. And for the brute force refinery, I could go ahead and just plop it really anywhere in here is fine. It is a heat producer. So if you take a look at the rock crusher, it produces 16 kDTUs when in use. So it's one of those things that, you know, we're going to want to be wary of. And for now, I'm going to run the cables from within our living area and then over to the rest of the power grid, because I'm not wanting to turn on the wood burner just to fire up the rock crusher. And all of these sweep tasks here are level 1 tasks. So essentially, my duplicants don't really do it. If there's anything else that they would prefer to do, it's the lowest priority, so that they're not needlessly wasting their time sweeping. Oh, and a dog treat. I missed that. Oh, Yoda. Here you go. Yeah, if you're bored, sweep. Exactly. So get this rock crusher going, refine some metals, and then be able to set up a proper power plant. Very, very basic power plant, but still. So our population is 10. So here, as you can see, when cramped, the reproduction rate drops to 0. So what I'm going to be looking for is, so see this Phlox, for instance, who's 90 out of 100? Killing off the really old Phloxes to make room for the young ones are going to be ideal. So, like, this one is 81. We'll clear the lat one out, too. And that gives us meat, which might be useful to cook barbecue or something like that. For our people. Taking a look at our kcals. Actually, let's go ahead and do pike apple skewers again, because we ate all of our skewers. Now we're just left with shrewberries, omelets, and pike apples. Actually, no. Let's wait until the omelets are zeroed. Lady Stormguard, thank you for the resub. Welcome, welcome. So when you kill a Phlox, it only drops meat. It will tell you here, drops 1,600 kcals of meat. You don't get wood off of a killed Phlox. So now, our Phlox population is rather low. We just have like 2 adult Phloxes and everything else is an egg. But the eggs will eventually incubate, you know, and replenish our Phlox population. So we have 6 eggs and 2 adult Phloxes. And if I have to build an incubator to get their populations up quicker, I can. I just don't think it's not... I doubt it will be necessary. Blueprint. Farming Cooking Research, who has bedside manner and is a pacifist. It's not terrible. Nicola isn't terrible. Farming Doctor, Doctor Farming. Wow, they're like... That's funny. I don't think I need a full-time farmer or cook, and I really only have space for 1 researcher, so again, I'm just going to do the hatchling. I'm going to be very picky about this. I'm going to kill off that hatchling for more meat. So, like, the hatchling dropped twice as much meat as the Phlox does. Phloxes are not a good source of meat. If you're looking to have a lot of meat for, let's say, tallow, Mammoths are obviously a much better source of meat. As you can see, killing them yields more than 10 times the meat that a Phlox does. Phloxes are tiny. So, Rock Crusher. Let's go ahead and make iron ore. And I'll make a batch up to 10. That's weird. Lightbringer, I see that you asked a question about the game, but I don't... did they have their own variants? Okay, I see that now. So, I don't think they do. I could be mistaken. I don't think, well, I don't want to say that none of them have variants, but so if we take a look at, like, let's say a Dreco, you can see the glossy Dreco Crittermorph, which is in the database here. But if we go to, like, Phlox, there's no... Is there a Crittermorph? What is that? I don't know. I don't see Crittermorph entries for that. So I don't want to say definitively. Because, but I don't think so. I have no idea. We'll see. The greenish one is just the baby? Yeah. It didn't have a Crittermorph entry, but I have said in the past, the wiki, or the in-game wiki, is not as useful as, like, the website wiki. It has kind of what I would consider an incomplete amount of information a lot of the time, so, you know, I can't answer that question with any certainty. And it would be a spoiler for anyone else to do it anyway. Taking a look at the research tree, I did want to fill out all of the basic research, just to have it. So I'm going to continue just picking any of the basic research more or less at random. So with a little bit of refined iron here, what we could do with this is to set up a smart battery once we have 200 of it, and then to set up the power control station. So the benefit of the... Oops. There's the... So this is the automation overlay. There are no automation wires anywhere that we know of. But, so taking a look back at the power plant, generators built within the power plant can be tuned up. So unless we're going to actively tune things up, there isn't really a point to having a power plant control station. And then if we look at the skills, the tuning up is here. And Scorpio has not gotten electrical engineering yet. So unless Scorpio gets electrical engineering, there's not even really a point, because nobody can even operate it. So it's rather moot. Alright, storage is unavailable, so let's go ahead and do the dumpage. So that the stuff can be swept again. They ran out of space to put stuff. It does look like the carbon dioxide, or the oxygen rather, in the living quarters is rather thin. So I'm going to put a sconce here. And then put this as a 9 build priority. So we're keeping our... Oh, I don't even have any oxalate in here? It all sublimed or reused it? I'll be damned. I'm gonna have to dig some more up. I would have thought that we would have access to more of it. I mean, there's obviously a lot of oxalate out here, but yeah, I'm gonna want to resolve that sooner than later. So I'm gonna put this as a 9, and then out here, I'm gonna put the other sconces as a 1. Because the outside has a lot of high pressure oxygen that we actually don't want to be adding to because of the gas pump. We're not going to be able to pump unless that gas pump isn't pressurized on the other side, which currently it is. So as we dig up the oxalate, I'm going to higher priority sweep it up so we can put the oxalate where it needs to be in order to hopefully not sublime and then release oxygen into our living area. This is going to be a little less of a problem once we have the wood burner going, because the wood burner is going to produce a lot more carbon dioxide than the heater does. The heater's oxygen production is rather, or carbon dioxide rather, production speed is rather low comparatively. then I'm also, when I dig up the oxalate, I'm making sure that none of it is exposed outgassing. I'm just putting it into storage immediately. Will the sweeping tasks sweep up the light gems? I believe they have. They're over here. So I would need to put them... Oh man, they're like so deep into the selection tree. I guess that's a bit of a problem, huh? I can move them manually. So let's move one there. I don't even... Alright, so we moved one of the lumen quartz. Is the other lumen quartz in here already? Is that what's going on? Oh, I think it was already inside. Alright, there we go. It's put back. So now we can take our speedy poops. We don't quite have enough... Well, we don't have enough power to even do the refining at the moment. So I'm going to raise this priority so that the rock crusher is a slightly higher priority so we actually get to it. And there we go. Now Scorpio's working on that. Perfect. There's nowhere to sweep up liquids. Oh, and someone got a skill. Nabla. Suit wearing. So I think Nabla was the last one to get suit wearing. Yep. So now all of them have suit wearing. So if I do start using suits, they're going to be capable of it and not be so penalized from it, which is good. Let's check breathability. Alright, so the sconce hasn't released a lot of oxygen just yet. There's still a little bit of, but it is rippling out, I would say. You know, it will get there eventually. I'll intervene with another sconce if I feel the need to, but for now it seems to be okay. I'm going to raise the requirement of the manual generator slightly higher. And then we should be able to get more crushing going. The act of crushing this is also... so the act of crushing iron ore to iron also produces sand. So one of the benefits that we can do from that is now we have a filtration medium as a byproduct of that process. So we can start filtering oxygen. All the polluted oxygen. I mean, I'm not worried about it, but considering we already have the sand, I might as well put the sand to good use. And that is here in decontamination. So once filtration's done, I'll research decontamination and seek out the pockets of bad gases. So here's the gas overlay. So we have pockets of polluted oxygen up here, and then some pockets, mostly it's going to be focused around the bathroom, because that's where the composting and the wash basins are. But that sand will be put to good use. Alright, and I did just get the necessary requirements for the smart battery. So I'll put one of those in now. And for now, the plan is to just use... Actually, I'm going to use iron here. To just use these simple wires in this setup. And another duplicate skill. Sean. I'm going to have you start working on your construction skills. So that I have 2 constructors. That should speed things up. Thank you for tuning in to Oxygen Not Included Frosty Planet, which originally streamed live on Twitch August 1st. If you have any feedback or questions for me, let me know in the comments below. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams. If you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com has a link to it, as does the description of this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Patreon patrons, Twitch subscribers, and viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. Thank you so very much. I hope to catch a next episode or an upcoming stream of mine. Farewell, my fellow duplicates.